Imagine boarding a train not listed on any schedule, bound for a destination you can't predict, carrying passengers whose secrets weigh heavier than their luggage. Now imagine discovering this train knows your past, your fears, and your deepest regrets. This is where Nora's story begins, a restless soul seeking escape from her own life, only to stumble into a journey she never signed up for. As the train hurtles forward, time freezes, reflections come alive, and the passengers speak in riddles. Stay with us. Every moment counts. By the end, you'll understand why this journey could easily be yours. Nora sat by her bedroom window, staring at the city lights. Sleep had eluded her for months, and her mind felt like an overworked machine. She pressed her fingers to her temples, muttering under her breath, "I just need to get out of here." Her apartment was a prison, a place filled with reminders of decisions she couldn't undo. Bills piled on the counter, unanswered messages blinking on her phone. "Nora," she whispered to herself, "you've got to clear your head." The train station was quiet, almost eerily so. The overhead lights flickered as she approached the ticket counter, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. "Late night ride?" the clerk asked, not bothering to look up. "Yeah. Where does train 113 go?" The clerk hesitated before handing her the ticket. "It's one of the older lines. Not many people take it these days." The platform was damp, the air heavy with the smell of rust and rain. Nora exhaled deeply, letting the cold air sting her lungs. "This is what you wanted, right? A change of scenery?" The train screeched into view, its vintage exterior gleaming faintly under the dim station lights. She stepped aboard, noting the worn leather seats and brass fixtures. It felt like stepping into another time. Inside, the train was sparsely populated. A man in a trench coat sat near the window, clutching a briefcase as though it held his life's secrets. Across the aisle, a young woman hummed to herself while knitting something indiscernible. Nora slid into a seat near the back, her eyes scanning the room. She pulled out her notebook, hoping to jot down her thoughts, but her pen hovered uselessly above the paper. Her mind was blank. As the train lurched forward, the man in the trench coat turned and spoke. "First time on the 113th. "Yeah, why?" He smirked but didn't answer, turning back to the window. Minutes turned into hours, or so it seemed. Nora glanced at her watch. The hands were frozen at 1:11 in the morning. That can't be right. The humming woman stopped knitting abruptly, her needles hanging mid-air. Without looking up, she said softly, "It's always 1:11 here." "What? What does that mean?" The woman didn't respond, resuming her knitting as if nothing had happened. Nora leaned her head against the window, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The train sped past station after station, none of them familiar. The lights outside seemed distorted, stretching like streaks of color on a canvas. "Where are we going?" Her reflection in the glass caught her attention. It didn't move with her. Instead, it stared back, a second behind her own movements. Nora froze. Her reflection smiled. "Passengers, prepare for your destination. It's closer than you think." The train swayed gently as Nora clutched the edge of her seat. Her pulse thudded in her ears, drowning out the faint hum of the carriage. Her reflection hadn't moved since that chilling smile. "It's just exhaustion. Lack of sleep. Yeah, that's all it is." The woman across the aisle set down her knitting needles with a soft click. Her pale hands folded neatly over her lap as she spoke, in a voice that carried a strange calm. "If you're seeing things, it means you're beginning to notice." "Notice what?" The knitter didn't respond. Her lips curved into a knowing smile as she resumed her work, the needles clicking rhythmically. Nora's eyes shifted to the man in the trench coat. He was now pacing the aisle, his polished shoes squeaking faintly against the floor. He muttered under his breath, running a hand through his graying hair. "Hey, what did you mean earlier? About the 113th? He stopped abruptly, his sharp gaze locking onto hers. "You should leave well enough alone. Curiosity." He trailed off, looking toward the far end of the carriage where the door to the next car swayed slightly ajar. "It doesn't do anyone any good on this train." The way he said this train made her stomach twist. Nora rose from her seat, her legs unsteady as she moved down the narrow aisle. The air felt heavier the closer she got to the door, like walking through a thick fog. The trenchcoat man grabbed her arm. His grip was firm but trembling. "Don't go looking for answers you can't handle. What's going on here? Why is everyone acting like this is normal?" He opened his mouth to speak, but the humming woman interrupted, her tone sharp for the first time. "Let her go. She'll find out soon enough." The door to the next car creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. Nora hesitated before stepping through, her shoes clicking softly against the floor. The dining car was eerily pristine. White tablecloths adorned every table, and silver cutlery glinted under the flickering chandeliers. But it was empty, completely devoid of passengers. As she walked deeper into the car, her unease grew. The walls were lined with ornate frames, each holding black and white photos of passengers boarding the train. Her breath hitched when she saw it. A photo of herself, standing on the platform from earlier that night. Her duffel bag hung from her shoulder, and the faintest smirk tugged at her lips. But she didn't remember smiling. She stumbled back, nearly knocking over a chair. Her mind raced. "This doesn't make sense. I didn't... Who took this?" Behind her, the sound of footsteps echoed. She spun around to see a new figure, a young man, maybe in his early 30s, dressed in a slightly rumpled suit. His tie hung loosely around his neck, and his face was pale, his eyes dark and sunken. "You shouldn't be in here. Who are you?" The man glanced at the photo on the wall and then back at her. "Call me Alex. I'm like you. Someone who didn't realize what they were getting into." "What's that supposed to mean?" Alex hesitated, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "This train, it's not just a train. It's a crossing point, a place between places. And everyone here has a reason they're on it, including you. I just wanted to clear my head. I didn't sign up for whatever this is." "Neither did I. But this place, it knows you. It feeds on what's inside you, your fears, your regrets. That's how it keeps you here." Nora glanced at the photo again, her reflection in the glass faintly visible beside it. "What if I don't want to stay?" That's the question, isn't it? The harder you fight, the tighter its grip becomes. But what? There's a way to leave, but it's not easy. You'll have to face whatever it is you've been running from. The train groaned beneath Nora's feet as if alive, each step unsteady like walking on a swaying boat. The walls of the car seemed to ripple in her peripheral vision, stretching and contracting in a sickening rhythm. She steadied herself against a seat, her breath shallow and fast. This can't be real. The sound of deliberate footsteps made her whip around. A man emerged from the shadows at the far end of the car. His uniform was pristine, but there was something unsettling about the way he carried himself. Too smooth, too controlled, as though his every move was choreographed. "Miss Nora, I see you ventured further than most. You know my name." The conductor tipped his hat, the gesture oddly formal. "I know all my passengers. It's my duty, after all, to ensure your journey is enlightening." "Enlightening? What kind of journey is this? What's going on with this train?" He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. The train reflects its passengers, their thoughts, their fears, their pasts. It bends and shifts to show them what they need to see, what they need to confront. This isn't some kind of therapy session. I just wanted to clear my head, to get away for a while. Not this. The conductor stepped closer, his polished shoes eerily silent on the floor. Running away never takes you far, Miss Nora, especially when you're running from yourself. Her breath hitched at his words. You don't know anything about me. Don't I? With a wave of his gloved hand, the walls seemed to shift again. The panels flickered, revealing flashes of images. Nora sitting alone in a dimly lit apartment, her desk cluttered with unpaid bills and empty coffee cups. A voicemail blinking on her phone, her mother's voice strained with worry. Stop it. You've spent so much time pretending to hold everything together, but the cracks are widening, aren't they? The sleepless nights, the constant pressure, the fear of failing everyone around you. The memories struck her like blows. Nora's mind flooded with the weight of her reality. She thought of her dead-end job that barely paid the rent, the guilt of ignoring her mother's calls, and the suffocating shame of losing the promotion she had pinned all her hopes on. She remembered the suffocating silence of her apartment, her own mind an unrelenting critic reminding her of every misstep, every mistake. I didn't come here for this. I just wanted space, time to think. And yet you boarded this train. Perhaps deep down, you were seeking something more. A reckoning, perhaps. If this train knows so much about me, then tell me why I feel like I'm suffocating every second of every day. Why nothing I do is ever enough. Because you measure yourself against standards you don't truly believe in. You carry burdens that were never yours to bear. But now, you must decide if you will continue running or face what lies ahead. His words hung in the air as the train jolted violently, sending Nora crashing against the wall. She groaned, pushing herself up as the car seemed to stretch again, the walls bending unnaturally. Her eyes landed on something new at the far end of the carriage. A door she hadn't seen before, its edges glowing faintly. What's behind there? A choice. A choice? Nora pressed, taking a step toward it. I must warn you, Miss Nora. That door will not show you kindness. It will demand from you truths you've long buried. If you open it, there is no turning back. Her mind raced, the pressure of his words weighing heavily on her. She thought of her life, the mounting debts, the estranged relationships, the crushing weight of expectations. What if I don't open it? Then you'll remain on this train circling endlessly, a prisoner of your own fears. The train does not forgive cowardice. Nora's chest tightened, her thoughts swirling like a storm. Is this it? Is this where everything falls apart? Or where I finally take control? As she stood there, the door pulsing faintly before her, the conductor stepped aside. The choice is yours, Miss Nora. But choose wisely. The train does not wait forever. Nora reached for the door, her fingers trembling. But before she could touch the handle, a voice called out from behind her. Wait! Don't open it yet. You don't know what's on the other side. Nora's trembling hand hovered over the glowing door handle as Alex's voice broke through the tension. Wait! Don't open it yet. You don't know what's on the other side. She turned to face him, her face a mixture of confusion and frustration. What do you mean? What do you know about this train, Alex? Why are you here? Alex hesitated, running a hand through his disheveled hair. This isn't my first ride. What does that even mean? It means I've been stuck here, too. This train. It pulls people in when they're at their breaking point. It doesn't let you off until you've faced whatever's tearing you apart. That's ridiculous. I'm not broken. I just needed some air, some distance. Then why are you running, Nora? Why haven't you answered your mom's calls? Why do you sit in that apartment drowning in bills instead of asking for help? You don't know anything about me. Her mind flashed back to a memory. Nora, honey, I'm not trying to pry. I just want to know you're okay. Please, call me back. Nora stared at the voicemail on her phone, her thumb hovering over the delete button. She couldn't bring herself to listen to the rest. The shame of admitting how badly things were spiraling kept her silent. I'll fix it first, she thought. Then I'll call her. But fixing it never came. Alex's voice pulled her back to the present. You think hiding from it all makes you strong? It doesn't. It just makes you lonelier. What about you? If you've been here before, why are you still on this train? Because I couldn't make the choice. I've been stuck in this limbo, avoiding the truth for too long. But maybe helping you will help me find my way out too. The corridor dissolved into an older, dustier train car. The air smelled of rust and mildew, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the faded seats. She steadied herself, taking in the haunting stillness of the old carriage. What is this place? Alex pointed to a framed photograph on the wall, its edges cracked and yellowed. It was a picture of Nora as a child, sitting on her mother's lap, her face beaming with unfiltered joy. That's me. This train doesn't just reflect your fears. It shows you pieces of your past, the things you've buried. The question is, what are you going to do with them? She was in her teenage years, slamming the door to her room after an argument with her mother. You don't understand. You never do. I just want what's best for you, Nora. I always have. But Nora didn't listen then. And now, years later, the weight of those unresolved moments bore down on her. Back in the present, Nora reached out to touch the photograph, her fingers trembling. I pushed her away because I was scared of disappointing her. And now, I don't even know how to fix it. You fix it by facing it, by taking that first step, even if it scares you. The walls of the train shifted again, this time revealing a small desk cluttered with overdue bills and a phone blinking with unread messages. It was an uncanny replica of her apartment. The sight of it brought tears to her eyes. This is my life. A constant cycle of trying and failing, of pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Alex placed a hand on her shoulder. And this is your chance to break the cycle. But you have to choose to face it. Nora felt the weight of her past, her fears, and her regrets pressing down on her. For the first time, a spark of resolve flickered in her chest. Nora turned to Alex. I'm ready to face it, but I'm not doing it alone. The glowing door appeared once more, brighter than ever. The conductor's voice echoed faintly from the shadows. The choice awaits, Miss Nora. Will you step through? The train rattled to a halt. Silence fell, thick and heavy, pressing against Nora's ears. The glowing door from before stood in front of her, but this time it pulsed like a beating heart, each thrum sending waves of unease through her. Alex stood a few steps behind her, his face unreadable. This is it. Whatever's behind that door will decide everything. Are you coming with me? No. This is your journey, Nora. My stop. It's somewhere else. Before she could question him further, the door creaked open on its own, spilling golden light into the dim train car. It was blinding at first, but as her eyes adjusted, she saw a figure standing on the other side. It was her mother, but not the mother she'd left behind. This version was younger, vibrant, with a warmth in her eyes that Nora hadn't seen in years. She stood in a kitchen that felt both familiar and distant, her hands busy slicing fruit, humming an old lullaby that sent a pang through Nora's chest. Nora stepped through the door, the train behind her dissolving into a faint echo. She was now fully in the scene, barefoot on cold tile floors, the smell of fresh-cut oranges filling the air. Mom! Her mother looked up, her face lighting up with a smile that melted years of tension in Nora's heart. "Oh, there you are, sweetheart. I was wondering when you'd show up." Nora froze, unsure whether to cry, scream, or collapse. This isn't real. You're not real." Her mother tilted her head, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. "Maybe I'm not. Or maybe I'm the version of me you've been avoiding all along. The one who reminds you what you've lost and what you can still save." The room flickered like a faulty light bulb, and suddenly Nora was back in her teenage bedroom. Posters of bands she no longer listened to lined the walls, and the faint sound of rain tapped against the window. "You don't just get to slam doors and walk away every time things get hard, Nora. One day you're going to realize the world doesn't wait for you to grow up." The scene stung like a fresh wound, but this time Nora didn't flinch. She stepped to the door, her hand resting on the handle. "I'm sorry. I should have said it then, but I was too stubborn to see it." Nora found herself back in the glowing void, her mother standing before her again, older now, closer to how she remembered her. "It's not too late. You still have time to reach out, to fix what's broken." "How? I've made such a mess of everything. I don't even know where to start." "Start by forgiving yourself. The rest will follow." The train came rushing back into focus. Nora was seated in her original spot, the hum of the wheels on the tracks steady and rhythmic. Alex was gone. The strange glowing doors were gone. It was just her, alone, with the early dawn light creeping through the windows. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over her mother's contact. The train slowed, pulling into a station she didn't recognize. Final stop. All passengers disembark. Nora smiled, a strange peace washing over her. She hit the call button and stepped off the train into the golden morning light. As she walked away, the train behind her faded into nothingness. A man in a suit appeared on the platform, glancing at his ticket before boarding. He paused, looking back at Nora with a faintly puzzled expression. She smiled at him knowingly. Good luck. As Nora's journey reminds us, sometimes the answers we seek aren't in the places we run to, but in the people we've left behind. Have you ever faced a moment so overwhelming that you forgot about the support waiting for you in your own family? Share your story in the comments. How did you reconnect? Or what did you learn about leaning on those closest to you during tough times? And if this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to join us for more tales that delve deep into the human spirit. Together, we uncover truths that might just change our lives.